But because of the high rainfall totals we've seen recently, there could be some further issues, making flooding a little bit worse in some places. Also, heavy rain across parts of eastern Northern Ireland, Northern England and North Wales in particular. Like I said, some further ongoing issues, some more disruption to travel possible. A drier story further south, quite cloudy through the morning, though I am expecting some bright or sunny spells to develop as we head into the afternoon, particularly across parts of East Anglia and South East England. Here there's a good chance of seeing some sunshine. And in the sunshine here, it should feel pleasantly warm. Temperatures likely to peak just about in the low 20s towards the southeast. Further north and west, where you have the rain, temperatures will be suppressed, some places staying in single digits, and watch out for some blustery winds towards the northwest. As we look towards Friday, and there will still be some further outbreaks of rain, especially across northern parts, though these look fairly light and there will be some dry spells in between. Further south, likely to stay mostly dry, and there may even be some bright or sunny spells developing. Saturday looks set to be the driest and sunniest day of the weekend, before a bit more rain on Sunday for many. See you later.
Looks like things are heating up. Boxed boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Good evening, I'm Sophia Wensler in the GB newsroom. And as you've been hearing, the Prime Minister has addressed the first Tory campaign rally after confirming a 4th of July general election. In a statement outside Downing Street today, Rishi Sunak made the surprise announcement and urged the nation to stick with him over Sir Keir Starmer. Addressing Tory party supporters and his cabinet at London's Excel Centre a short while ago, he took aim at the Labour leader.
On the 5th of July, either Keir Starmer or I will be Prime Minister. And he has shown time and time again that he will take the easy way out and do anything to get power. If he was happy to abandon all the promises that he made to become Labour leader once he got the job, how can you know that he wouldn't do exactly the same thing if he were to become Prime Minister? We Conservatives have got a clear plan, with bold action, to secure our future. So let's take that message and that vision of a secure future to every corner of our United Kingdom, and let's show Labour that the British people will never be taken for granted.
Meanwhile, the Labour leader, Keir Starmer, responded to the announcement, saying the election is the moment the country's been waiting for.
Tonight, the Prime Minister has finally announced the next general election, a moment the country needs and has been waiting for.
And Liberal Democrats leader Sir Ed Davey vowed to remove the Tories from power.
Across the country, people are crying out for change, and this election is the chance to make that happen. In so many parts of the country, it's the Liberal Democrats who can beat the Conservatives, who've taken people for granted.
In other news, nursery worker Kate Ruffley has been sentenced to 14 years in prison for the manslaughter of a 9-month-old baby. She strapped Genevieve Meehan face down on a beanbag for more than an hour and a half at Tiny Toes Nursery in Stockport in May 2022. The 37-year-old then failed to check on the distressed child and later found she was unresponsive. The former Post Office boss at the centre of the Horizon IT scandal has admitted making mistakes during her time in charge during a tearful evidence session at the Horizon inquiry. Paula Venables insists she didn't know about the Horizon system when she joined and that no one told her of any bugs. She's also denied any conspiracy to cover up the scandal. And for the latest stories, sign up to GB News Alerts by scanning the QR code on your screen or go to gbnews.com/alerts. Now it's time for headliners.
Hello and welcome to Headliners, your first look at Thursday's newspapers. I'm Simon Evans. Tonight I'm joined by recently red-pilled Josh Howie and long-term black-pilled Nick Dixon. That's what they say. Josh, is it true?
I don't even know what we're talking about.
Red-pilled, I don't know.
Well, I don't know. I mean, I've had some Nurofen.
It's like the right-wing version of woke.
OK, but what's the black pill mean?
Black pill's just despair. You've gone past the red pill, you see there's no point in anything. I'm not like that. I'm white-pilled. I'm happy. People have tried to take me out. They can't.
The black pill is presented is illustrated as the kind of drawn lots of bags under the eyes, always a fag going in the mouth. That's not you, is it?
No, I follow God.
Up at dawn,
I can't be
stretches.
stopped. Yeah.
But you do look well, Josh. You've shaved off your beard. It's taken years off you.
Has it?
Yeah, it has.
Thank
Absolutely.
you. Well, you look
yeah.
well. You look very... You shaved your head.
Yeah, I shaved my head behind my
like
back
Ben
using
Kingsley.
3 mirrors.
Ben Kingsley in Sexy Beast.
That's right. Don't get me narky.
I think I made a mistake, to be honest, but...
No, you look well. Excellent. You look like Arthur Miller. Any Marilyns out there already?
But he can't write.
I got my Marilyn.
Anyway, I think we probably can guess what's going to be on the front pages today, but let's have a quick scan. Now is the moment for Britain to choose its future, says a soaking wet Rishi outside number 10. That's the Daily Mail. Guardian, Sunak's big gamble. And if they're talking about the weather, it failed. The Financial Times, Sunak bets on a July 4th election. A resonant date, of course. The Mirror, drown and out. A besotted the backs of his suit there, horrible Savile Row suit, although he doesn't pay VAT, so I suppose he's all right. And finally, the Metro, Sunak bets the House. And those were your front pages. So, as I say, a pretty uniform collection there. Josh, we'll start with the Telegraph.
Yes, Sunak gambles on the Snap poll, and this is all very exciting. We have 6 weeks of this stuff coming up. It was somewhat marred by, of course, the rain, as we can see there. No one thought to bring in an umbrella. And things can only get better. Being played in the background was quite amusing.
Yes,
quite
who did that?
I think it was Steve Bray.
Was it?
I think it
was Dee Ream. Oh, sorry, you mean... Sorry.
So this is the... interesting things, the questions are why they've, of course, made that decision.
Yeah.
And it seems to be the analysis on the Telegraph that makes sense to me anyway. Is number one is inflation is coming down to the lowest figure in 3 years.
Yeah.
Number two is that immigration is also seems to be coming down. Some of these, which we're going to be talking about a lot, some of these decisions are now making an impact. And also that the money that's going to need to be spent now on things like the blood scandal means that there's no money in the budget. So it seems like they might as well do it now when there's some good news rather than hold on a little bit longer when there's probably going to be some more bad news.
Yeah.
So that seems to be the gist of it. The question with the inflation for me is, even though that's obviously very encouraging, is the sort of drag time to real life impact on people. Whether, people are still seeing their mortgages. When they're coming off their mortgages, they're still paying more.
Not going to feel rich, are we?
Exactly.
There's not going to be a feel-good factor between now and July, or probably between now and November. Needs to be.
Or now and
probably ever again
2020
in this country. Yeah, I mean, look. The wetness has been much commented on. I mean, it was suitable for this government because it was an absolute shower, and also because Rishi is a total wet, so it made sense. Had he had someone like a flunky holding an umbrella, of course, the narrative would have been Rich Rishi gets someone to hold umbrellas. It is tricky. They probably went for
Unless
the sort
it would have been Penny Mordaunt holding it.
That would have worked perfectly. I don't know why I didn't think of that. That would have been ideal.
She could have had her cape.
Yeah, that would have been amazing. But so that was ridiculous and just pathetic. And you could barely. It's like a guy trying to. You're like, I'm trying to listen to the song here. Who's this guy talking over it? I'm trying to listen to Derek Ream. Anyway,
he for some time has reminded me of the rat in Flushed Away. You know that the Aardman
like,
Animations rat. And,
no, but people say Roland rat, don't they? That was actually trending.
Well, it clearly is a rat of some sort. But anyway, Flushed Away rat actually gets soaking wet because he has to go through the sewer. So today it was kind of he really lent into the
damp rat
thing.
You've made me even feel bad for him now, but. I mean, look. But why now? I mean, there's a few possible answers as well. One, you can. There's many reasons, but one, you can catch Labour off guard a little bit because they haven't even got their manifesto ready. They don't have any policies.
No.
And Starmer says this is power returns to you, which I thought was kind of ironic, given he's about to preside over the most radical quangocracy, the most radically unaccountable government we've ever seen, probably. But. The other question is, are reform ready? They're not ready. They've not got enough candidates yet. They need to sort their infrastructure. And Farage was saying today earlier on this channel that he thinks it's a lot to do with him. He's gone earlier because he knows he's not ready or thinks he's not ready. And Farage is going to decide overnight what to do, which is very exciting. So there's a few points on that.
So obviously reform are going to take votes away from the Tories. But we've seen evidence in the local elections recently that the Green Party, which seems to be a not entirely ecologically focused entity at the moment.
It's the Muslim gender ideology party.
Yeah, might take votes away from the left. What do you think about that, Josh?
Yeah, I think they will. The question is if it's in the areas that the left is still strong enough to win.
Yeah, it's always about the numbers, isn't it? Let's move on to... Read Kenneth Arrow, woman! Let's move on to the guy... Do you remember that? Jonathan Rhys-Davies on Question Time shouting at Caroline Lucas about the fact that you could... No electoral system ever produces an entirely accurate, it came into my mind again recently. It was all about whether we should welcome Donald Trump in 2016. Let's move on to The Guardian. Do they have anything to add to this?
Sorry.
Yeah,
I saw that. They could go one and the other. It's not quite all Josh yet. I know there are some changes coming. But, it's Sunak's big gamble, which is very similar. But it's very similar. It's just the Guardian-y angle, but it's not that guy. It's just basically the same thing. But one detail I could add, which we haven't heard yet, is that GB's own Christopher Hope tweeted that some furious Conservative MPs tonight working on a plot to call off the general election by replacing Sunak as leader before Parliament is dissolved next Thursday. So imagine that. You get in all your letters and you oust him and you call off the whole thing. I can't believe that would be allowed to happen because it would be such a bleep storm. But even by the Tory standards, that would be absurd.
I think it would also undermine their own, their legitimacy.
Exactly. Even more.
Going into election with the third unelected...
With your fingernails scraping along,
But also the idea that another leader would make a difference. That I don't know who they get in.
No,
Churchill maybe would do it.
I mean, the one thing somebody said this on Twitter today, which I thought was quite interesting, that Starmer, if he does come in, will be the first sort of not just post-war but post. There was a generation of prime ministers who had seen active service, who remember the Second World War. And obviously they've long since been dead. But we've still had this feeling like there's a generation of Tories, certainly, who remember that tradition of being a prime minister who had, Queen and country at heart, a nod towards the church and some tradition. Starmer feels completely rootless from that point of view.
Wasn't Tony Blair? He never did any of that stuff.
Oh, he was quite Christian, wasn't he? He was. I think you would say not, though. You would say he completely...
No, I'm just saying. Yeah. I just don't think he's the sort of far left.
He's not a watershed moment
that people.
No, I don't think he's a crank. I don't think he's a crank. I think he's a.
I think he's quite a pragmatist.
He's a straw in the wind. That's the problem.
Well, this is going to be the moment of truth.
Yeah.
In that we'll see he's sort of done and said really everything he can to be in this position right now where we're kind of unsure about him, but we don't necessarily hate him, or some people don't hate him anyway.
Starmer?
Yeah.
I mean, the question is, he used to write for Socialist Alternatives. He's a Pabloite, which is a subset of Trotskyism. So there's the Hitchens claim that he actually is secretly radically left. Then there's the other claim that he's purging the radical left. He's much more of a Blairite, and Blair's written that leadership manual for him. So let's see. Either way, the country's going to collapse.
Yes, that's true. And we just have time to have a look at Paula Venables.
Yeah, so this is the other thing. The post office, former post office CEO, started her 3-day testimony today and started crying when the families came up. It's hard to really have sympathy for her. I think the families were rightly still angry and didn't feel it was necessarily possibly authentic, but that's, of course, for them to decide.
Do you think she allowed the tears to come, or even sort of urged them to come? I mean,
it might also just be the pressure she's under and emotionally, whether she's genuinely crying for the loss of life, the loss of people's.
No, she'll be crying for her own.
Well, this is and whether she gets to keep her.
What you can do now is the Matt Hancock I'm just crying. I don't know if you know, I'm clearly crying here. I mean, obviously, I'm distraught. You just say you're crying, touch your eye.
Yes.
It works quite well.
As an old man gets a vaccination. Finally, we do have an interesting story on the front page of the Financial Times.
Finally, an interesting story. Yeah, this is Germany's far-right AfD in turmoil after lead candidate speaks up for SS. So I've only just been presented with this one. I've been very much focused on the election. But what I can see is that it's not ideal when you're known as being a far-right party to praise the SS. But his point was that it doesn't mean that there was that they were all criminals. He says a high proportion of criminals in these units, but I wouldn't say that someone was automatically a criminal because he wore the wrong uniform. So it's kind of like having a poster of Hitler in your house. It's not ideal when you thought to be far anyway. But I will say on the flip side...
Jordan Peterson has all that Soviet
that Soviet Russian art in my toilet. But the flip side, of course, and I haven't looked into this one enough, is that they're desperate to cancel the AfD no matter what, even though they are a legitimate party.
I think it was quite interesting. If you read into it, I think the point he was making, whether or not it's true, I don't know enough about the SS to know whether people could find themselves involved in it but not be criminal, or whether it has been accepted that simply being a member was criminal. But clearly the point he's making is not pro-SS. It's more like people got sucked into it without knowing. So if anything, as a member of the AfD, it would be Do you know what I mean? It's
no,
like...
I mean, they were made a criminal organisation, obviously, after the war.
Yeah.
But the point about the SS that differentiates them from the German army, in which you were subscripted to, is that you were a Nazi, like a signed-up, full-blooded Nazi.
Right.
So it isn't like you couldn't accidentally find yourself in the SS.
But that would be... So if you're saying to be a Nazi is criminal, that's fine, because there were millions of Nazis.
No, but I mean, beyond that,
but he's saying,
the enforcers of
have
Nazi...
you committed a criminal act? Well, the court has decided that being a member of the SS was a criminal act.
Yes,
so that's the end of it, yeah. So, but he's saying that, for me, isn't enough.
Well, I think he's trying to argue whether they committed criminal crimes in the camps or whatever. I mean, but it's like the morality police in Iran or something.
Yes.
Like, you sign up, not because you need to... You know, you sign up, you believe it.
You know, as we say, somebody said... I mean, I'm just, educating myself on it. Günter Grass, who was a Nobel Prize-winning novelist, 1999, was a member. Yeah. I think
you could argue that people were brainwashed.
Yeah,
you can make that argument.
Caught up in it,
But still, I'm not...
Anyway, he has resigned in order not to become the story. So that's quite interesting, just from the point of view that the AFD are developing some sort of media training skills now. They're becoming sentient. Would that be fair to say? I don't know. Maybe they already were, but it seems quite an interesting... We're going over a little bit, but I do just want to acknowledge there is some serious hard right action on the continent, isn't there?
With Holland getting the coalition government together,
and Marine Le Pen looking pretty strong, and it's quite ironic that after Brexit, Britain is the only country which is about to swing massively to the
We're going to have to rejoin to get with the populist revolution.
Anyway, that's it for part one. Stay with us for part two. In a couple of minutes, we'll have all the stories from inside the paper. See you shortly.
This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
The most sexiest man in the UK at the moment, as voted for by a dating website, is that man on your screen, Jeremy Clarkson. I'm sorry, Peter, I know he's a man of a certain age, but I'm not getting this one.
Are you not?
No.
This is another reason for an old wrinkly like me to be deeply joyous. Hope springs eternal. He's grey-haired, he's balding, he's got a bit of a pot belly, he's quite tall. I reckon I might be in with half a shower.
As long as only hope springing eternal, love. What do you make of this one?
Yeah, I agree with you. A lot of guys watching this will really be a bit befuddled as to how he's the sexiest guy. I think it's a sympathy vote.
No, I get it. I understand it.
But he's got a sense of humour, and he's got plenty of money.
But what's there to understand? How is he the sexiest man?
I'll tell you why. Because he's and I say this as a bloke, he's a man's man. He gets stuck in, he's involved, he's practical, he's physical.
Does that make him
funny,
sexy, though?
He's got money. I think men these days, if you ask me, too effeminate. Women don't want that. Women, well, I don't know
what do women want? Go on, just mansplain to me what women want. Go on,
sorry, tell us,
thank you very much. No, this is voted for by it's an illicit dating website, OK?
Oh, was it an affairs website?
Married women. But Idris Elba came third.
I just think Jez he's a man's man. Like I said, he's physical, he gets involved, he likes a beer, he's got plenty of money. How much did he get for the farm on Amazon?
That's so silly. So you're implying women only go for men with money?
Well, no, but I mean...
He did, didn't he? He just said that, yeah. He's got plenty of money, so
it's sexy. It's normal for women to want to be with a man who can look after them, no?
No. Will you stop mansplaining what women want?
My mum had an expression, Ben. She said, when you find yourself in a hole, stop digging. But trust me, if Idris Elba gets himself a pair of wellies, he'll be second next year.
GB News is Britain's election channel.
And when the big stories break, we're tackling them on Britain's newsroom. When we disagree, and we disagree a lot, it's even livelier than normal.
We don't disagree that much.
We do. His comedy, though, is revolting. I knew her, unlike you. That explains Beverly Turner's temperament.
It's a bit frosty in here, isn't it?
He'll have one of me one day.
For dartball practice. Britain's newsroom on GB News. Weekdays, 9:30 a.m.
GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We're GB News, and we come from a proud tradition of British journalism.
That's why I'm so excited to be here. It's something so new.
The first news channel to be launched in Britain in over 30 years.
Launched to represent the views of the British people.
To go where other broadcasters refuse to go.
How did you find out about the story in the first place?
Launched with one aim.
To be the fearless champion of Britain.
It's an absolutely fantastic atmosphere here.
This is GB News.
The People's Channel. GB News, Britain's news channel.
And welcome back to Headliners. I'm Simon Evans, still here with Josh Howie and Nick Dixon. And before we start on the news, a quick announcement. We're hosting a night with the Headliners live. You can join us for an evening of stand-up comedy with Andrew Doyle, Leo Kearse, myself, Simon Evans, and Josh Howie here. For more information, scan the QR code that you can see on the screen right now. I'll give you a moment to get out your phones and scan that. Or visit GBNews.com. That will be a tremendously entertaining evening.
And I was asked to do it, but wasn't available.
It's a shame, because you're a tremendous old stand-up in the
But I've semi-retired.
Yeah, you could have limped out of retirement for that, though,
Maybe. I don't have much stuff anymore, but thank you.
Well, we'll crack on with these stories, because we went over a bit there as we investigated the emergence of the hard right. Josh, the Daily Mail, the first of a number of stories this evening that suggests a possible pre-election stiffening.
Indeed.
See what I did there?
I did see what you did there. Businesses recruiting new staff will have to hire British workers first under non-negotiable curbs on migrant labour, Work Secretary says. There's Mel Stride and the Work and Pensions Secretary, and this is obviously to cut down migration. We have to, or in the past, we've had to do these visas, special visas for hospitality, for construction and care where we have gaps. Yeah. And he's basically saying, you have to hire British people. Now, to do that, of course, they would need to increase the wages. Yeah. Just by saying you have to hire British people doesn't mean that British people are necessarily going to take those jobs if they're low paid. No. If he says at the end, he says, look, there's no reason why. It's
very hard at the moment to determine, because normally in a labour market you go, well, is unemployment high? If unemployment is higher, then people will work for lower wages, blah, blah, blah. It's all that kind of supply and demand thing. But it just doesn't quite feel like you can find any hard edges on that at the moment. Do you know what I mean?
This is it. Well, he says, look, I see no reason why a British worker cannot be a care worker. Well, the reasons are that they don't want to be. No,
they've been allowed to grow up to think they won't have to be.
And it doesn't pay well, and it's not a particularly nice job cleaning up people's poo,
And you might well find you're surrounded by, historically speaking, non-British people, and you feel somehow like you've lowered your status to... I mean, this is a reality, isn't it, psychologically? Once people slip out of these kind of modes, they don't think that...
I don't blame the British people. Everything worked fine before this massive amount of immigration. We filled all the jobs with British-born people. It was not a problem.
We didn't have old people, though.
We didn't have old
people.
No.
The idea that we didn't manage is complete fiction. We didn't need all this immigration, and Mel Stride saying ex-convicts can do it instead. As long as they're British-born, I'm fine.
Some jobs have changed, and it's interesting. I mean, it would be a good question whether neutrally speaking, objectively speaking, you would say, is it better to spend 8 hours a day on a production line screwing in widgets, or is it better to spend 8 hours a day in a care home, in the warm and dry with a certain amount of decision-making, but also occasionally having the squalor of...
But it's going to make costs go up for the consumer. That's the thing. That's
but what I mean is a lot of traditional jobs that might have been regarded as having a certain amount of status, a certain amount of... there would be, you'd be with a gang of mates and you do a hard day's job in the factory and then you go and have a few beers. A lot of those jobs have gone, Automation has done for those. Even the call centres now have gone overseas. And you're left with what some people regard as pretty, squalid, undignified work. Yeah. I don't think just wages are going to hit, I don't think it's an extra couple of quid. I think an awful lot of people just don't fancy that kind of work.
Let's see. I mean, I'll believe it when I see it that immigration will actually come down. But finally, that people are making the economic argument. Maybe it will, because the cultural argument may not work for everyone. But people are now realising economically it's not benefited us either. So I'm hoping finally it comes down.
That is true. Nick, the Telegraph, and only one thing worse than everyone wanting to work here.
Yes, well, this is very much on the same theme. Visas for foreign workers in UK fall by 25%, and this is the biggest drop in foreigners moving to the UK. That's not my word, that's in the article. For work and studies since the pandemic, or plandemic, shout out Ofcom. But, and it's saying the number of skilled workers studying healthcare visas has dropped, but actually that's slightly misleading because the skilled worker ones have actually gone up. It's the other ones that have dropped more radically. I mean, the dependents for care workers is the main one. The number of foreign health and care workers has fallen by 76%. But skilled worker visas are up 41%, which they're saying is because of this fire sale where people were trying to get in before the threshold went up for how much you had to earn, 26,200 to 38,700. So there was a fire sale on that, so that's why that's gone up. But the idea is overall it's going down, particularly because of the care workers, but also the dependent visa scam, which is just so funny that it's having a far bigger impact than the government even expected. Yeah. It shows what a scam it was. You say, by the way, if you're doing a degree now, you can't just bring all your family over. Oh, cancelled degree. They all just cancelled it.
Why do you think it's all a scam? You're saying everybody who came and did it was a scam?
I'm saying that many of them were, yeah. They just wanted to do Mickey Mouse degrees to bring people over on visas. That was proven.
Well, I'm sure that that is the case, but not all of them. And there are going to be people who wanted to come over, study in this country, who would then stay and benefit this country, who are now not going to be doing it. That's also true.
They won't be able to do it because they're not allowed to bring their family?
Yeah, they made the decision to go and study elsewhere. And so we could be losing some of the best and the brightest, also people we need to pay the university fees here. I'm not saying that people didn't break the, there
was very well documented that it was massively abused. But you missed some good people. How do you keep the good people and not the bad ones?
Well, I'm just saying we're throwing the baby out with the bathwater here, and I think in a few years' time, when
I don't understand. I know it's more complex than this, but when I left home in St Albans to go to university in Southampton, I didn't take my parents with me, and I'm not saying
Well, maybe not parents or whatever,
but why didn't bring anyone with me? I just went to university, and if it had come to it, I could have flown home again.
But this is people doing MAs and PhDs.
I don't care. You don't have to bring your family with you. It's your education.
Well, no, but if they want to then work for 2 years afterwards, in which case they're going to benefit the economy.
For PhDs, Josh, there is an amendment. There's a ban on postgraduates other than those studying PhDs from being dependent. So
it's just for MAs, though, isn't it?
We have to move on. The Mail again, Josh. Something tells me you'll have strong opinions about this one as well.
Yeah, gloating Hamas hails important step as Ireland, Norway and Spain become the latest nations to recognise a Palestinian state. And Israel says it's a twisted move that rewards terrorism, which is totally correct. This is an insane and immoral decision because it actually causes harm to the entire world because, first of all, it shows that it's a rewarding terrorism. If you rape and kidnap and murder civilians, then you're going to basically get a state because of it. But also it's harmful to the Palestinian cause because it again encourages that behaviour rather than what really needs to be encouraged for a Palestinian state to happen, which is the desire from Palestinians for peace and to live in peace next to a Jewish state. That's not what most Palestinians want. Most Gazans want now, and also in repeated polls, still support what happened on October 7th. And same with Palestinians who live on the West Bank. And until there's actually a fundamental shift of a movement in their leadership and within the population for just kind of like this is our land, we are going to build a prosperous state here rather than we need to kill all the Jews and create another genocide from the river to the sea. Then nothing's going to happen. It's going to be the same old, same old. So the idea that these countries have made the decision, by the way, 3 countries who were all neutral during World War II and didn't do anything to help, is ridiculous and I think disgusting.
Yeah, interesting. Although I would say the World War II thing is probably a red herring insofar as that wasn't understood to be,
I know, you're right, yeah, but I'm just saying that.
I think it's interesting that I'm trying to find the numbers. I think it was about 140 UN states, 140 already recognised the state of Palestine. These are 3 new ones. I don't know, Nick, what do you think? I would say, I'm not in favour of it, but I wouldn't say it was rewarding the incursion of October the 7th. It's in response to Israel's continued bombardment. Right?
It's always potentially dodgy when you see sentences like, but Hamas welcomed the decision. So that is concerning. But it seems what they're trying to do, I know this is sort of Josh's expert subject, so I'll just give my 2 cents, but Spain are trying to dissociate Netanyahu from Israel. They're saying it's Netanyahu's campaign of pain and destruction. And similarly, Norway, as separating Hamas and Palestine, they're saying Palestine shouldn't be punished because they are not Hamas. So if people can separate those, you can have perhaps a more less emotive debate, because many people do think Netanyahu has messed this up and actually jeopardised Israel's standing internationally. That's what a lot of people think.
I think people just want to blame Netanyahu. The fact is, whoever the leader was of Israel would have to make exactly the same decisions. They have to get these hostages back. This is a day when the footage was released of young women, young Jewish women being captured, and the Hamas terrorists, and like, oh, you're beautiful, and calling them, basically saying that they're young women to make babies with and whatever. I mean, and they're still in tunnels being raped. I mean, that's the reality of what we're dealing with, and those are the people who are being rewarded by this decision. It's not going to create peace.
Isn't it, in terms of Gaza and Palestine and Hamas? It's unlike any other situation in the world, as far as I can tell, where half the population is under 18 and have never had the opportunity to vote and support them. So to say that they do support or don't support Hamas, they've essentially been raised within a sealed...
But like 80% of the population still support Hamas and still support their actions. So they haven't had a vote. Why have they not had a vote? Because Hamas hasn't allowed elections. Yeah. Same on Fatah on the other side. They haven't had elections for 20 years or whatever.
OK, we're at the halfway point. Join us in part 3 for Michael Gove's Great Awakening, cruel test for immigrants, and what is Donald Trump's views on contraception? We'll be back in a couple of minutes. See you then.
Hello, good evening. Here's your latest GB News weather update brought to you by the Met Office. It's been a very wet day for many of us today, and the rain is going to continue for many parts as we go overnight. All this unsettled weather is in association with an area of low pressure that is gradually making its way northwestwards, but it's progressing pretty slowly. And the rain, as a result, is going to linger across many northern parts of the UK as we go through this evening and overnight. It's going to be heavy and persistent for many parts, which is why we're going to continue to see rainfall totals building up, leading to some issues. Temperatures aren't going to drop a huge amount because of the unsettled weather, even in the south where it's going to be largely dry, likely to stay in double digits. As we go through tomorrow then, a bit of a north-south split. Across northern parts it is going to be wet, and we'll see rain through the morning too. The rain doesn't look like it will be as heavy as through today, but because of the high rainfall totals we've seen recently, there could be some further issues, making flooding a little bit worse in some places. Also heavy rain across parts of eastern Northern Ireland, northern England and North Wales in particular. Like I said, some further ongoing issues, some more disruption to travel possible. A drier story further south, quite cloudy through the morning, though I am expecting some bright or sunny spells to develop as we head into the afternoon, particularly across parts of East Anglia and southeast England. Here there's a good chance of seeing some sunshine, and in the sunshine here it should feel pleasantly warm. Temperatures likely to peak just about in the low 20s towards the southeast. Further north and west where you have the rain, temperatures will be suppressed, some places staying in single digits, and watch out for some blustery winds towards the northwest. As we look towards Friday, and there will still be some further outbreaks of rain, especially across northern parts though. These look fairly light, and there will be some dry spells in between. Further south likely to stay mostly dry, and there may even be some bright or sunny spells developing. Saturday looks set to be the driest and sunniest day of the weekend before a bit more rain on Sunday for many. See you later.
Join me, Camilla Tominey, every Sunday at 9:30 when I'll be interviewing the key players in British politics and taking them to task.
This report basically says that he's not fit to stand trial.
With an upcoming election looming over Westminster, now is the time for clear, honest answers.
I agree.
And that's precisely what I'll get.
Is he indecisive? Incompetent?
That's the Camilla Tominey Show at 9:30 every Sunday on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's election channel.
GB News is the home of free speech. We were created to champion it, and we deliver it day in, day out.
Free speech allows us all to explore and debate openly the issues most important to us, our families, and of course, the British people.
Having challenging conversations to enlighten each other.
Which is why we hear all sides of the argument.
We are the People's Channel.
We will always stand by the freedom to express yourself.
On TV, radio and online.
This is GB News,
Britain's news channel.
Welcome back to Headliners. So, Nick, we kick off with the Mail again, and strong "why did you invite them then" vibes here from Michael Gove.
Well, you've nicked my one comment, but yeah,
okay.
Michael Gove is deeply worried about impact of the Middle East conflict on upcoming general election as far-right, hard-left and Islamist groups look to undermine democracy. So, yeah, shouldn't have done all that immigration then, bro. But, it's quite funny. They always have to do this. So he's talking about the Allahu Akbar cries after the Green candidate won and so on, and saying that was disturbing and deeply provocative. He says we have to be alive to the fact that there are Islamist organisations, extreme left figures and far-right figures who want to undermine our democracy. And far-right, not really related to this, but they always have to do that because they can't say one without saying the other. Not really relevant to this particular threat, which is to do with, he's talking about foreign conflicts erupt on our streets. Far right has nothing to do with that, really.
Well, certainly foreign conflicts informing, creating voting blocs and creating...
people voting in their ethnic interests and all kinds of things, or religious interests.
I haven't seen any evidence of any far-right activity, organising people, bringing them together, funneling them into a certain candidate. Have you seen anything, Josh, of that kind?
Not in the Democratic.
No.
I mean, they exist.
Yeah, they'll march against...
The right are never that organised.
No, that's right. I mean, just to go back to it, we have seen it on the continent. It certainly could happen. You know, there are now significant... I think it's fair to describe... Far right now doesn't mean the same thing as the opposite of far left. It means specifically anti-immigration, doesn't it? That's pretty much all of the far right are interested
when it's used in
this kind of context, discussion. It's not talking about...
But I think a lot of people are concerned about immigration and are more willing to talk about the need, certainly, to confront illegal immigration.
Yeah.
But
I mean, I've known friends for a long time now who don't feel particularly concerned about immigration themselves, but have expressed concern that when immigration is high or unchecked, it provides oxygen for the far right.
I think there's truth. I mean, I think there's truth to both of those. Frankly, that we do need. It is something that we do need to tackle, obviously. But of course, but if this dialogue is left alone, it will just be sucked in by the far right. Will be the fire that take that.
That view you express is virtually the Norm Macdonald joke. I mean,
exactly.
You know, my worry is that if
imagine the Islamophobia,
the backlash.
I suppose the other thing Gove might be hinting at is reform. I mean, is he vaguely saying that that reform? I don't think. No,
he's talking about a problem that he has to say far right just for balance.
For balancing, and it is a problem though. But yes. It is great. He's really, because things like the Green parties, the Mothanali and whatever, the Aloha stuff.
News of immigrants now, Josh, being expected to pass English tests and to remain in England. This is like expecting me to pay to park in my own country.
Oh, yeah.
Disgraceful.
Migrant graduates will face English tests to stay in UK under crackdown. So this is what we were talking about earlier, the graduate route in.
Yeah.
And there is a loophole there that is being exploited. And the argument is that this is one of the things that will close that up, is that, some people are paying for degrees or paying to do supposed degrees, and then they're kind of dropping out. So they're not speaking English after they've supposedly written a dissertation or something. So that's one way of closing a loophole. The other one they're talking about is universities with high dropout rates. Those would be have their licences to recruit overseas. That sounds like a very sensible thing. These are sensible decisions to close loopholes that have been exploited, that should have been done before, and are welcome. But again, doesn't mean that we should throw it all out. Is my point.
Nick, is there some sense in which loopholes get exploited more quickly than the government understand or recognise, and I wonder whether it is something to do with smartphones and the internet and so on. The speed at which the word gets around. There's lovely old stories about like chimps or dogs, that one of them learns a trick and then suddenly they all know it. You know what I mean? It's like a kind of... I'm not like reducing these people to the level of subhuman animals, but I'm just saying there's a kind of...
Good to get that in.
Yeah, but there's a sort of speed at which the chinks in the armour get shared now that seems to be faster. Is that...
Yeah, I'm sure there is. I mean, with the internet and so on, and communication, everything gets shared a lot faster, doesn't it? But why is Cameron piping up, watering down restrictions and proposals? Cameron already offered to get, or claimed he was going to get immigration down to the tens of thousands. In 2010, he's still mucking around trying to reduce what's he doing?
Yeah, it's a good question.
I'd argue, what's he doing, period?
What's he doing, period, yeah, exactly.
Well, I still quite like the idea of having a Prime Minister from the House of Lords again, I must admit. But
Farage will do that.
Yes, possibly. Or Claire Fox. Donald Trump, Nick, flip-flopping over the morning after pill, which is something no one wants to see.
Trump rejects claims he will ban the morning after pill just hours after suggesting he would limit contraception. Another Democrat lie. Total lie. So he says... it was this classic Trump kind of woolly chat, because they were talking about restrictions on the woman's right to use contraception. He said, we're looking at that, and I'm going to have a policy on that very shortly. And it's very interesting, which is just classic Trump fluff. Many people are talking about it. It's a tremendous policy.
You're just telling me this for the first time.
Yeah, I'm hearing this for the first time. That was his great moment. But then he put in block capitals on Old Truth Social. I have never and will never advocate imposing restrictions on birth control or other contraceptives. But then there's the issue of the morning after pill, which seems to be a slightly separate one. And he said things really have to do a lot with the states. So on that one, he was more evasive and suggested it was the states which will decide themselves. It's a weak spot. It's considered a weak spot for the Republicans, especially post the midterms, when they seem to have lost ground by being too radical on the pro-life issue. I don't particularly think it's radical to not want to abort babies, but that's me. But it was seen that way.
Personally, I mean, the thing for me was, and I probably am in a minority here, but just technically speaking, legally speaking, Roe v. Wade was bad law. It was not a constitutional issue, and they could have passed an amendment. You know, there was 50 years of opportunity when they could probably have made it a federal law that guaranteed a woman's right to an abortion. But because Roe v. Wade was sitting there, it was not felt necessary to do so. But he hasn't stopped the states allowing it to happen. But I am being legalistic, and I realise it's much more emotive than that.
But just in the case of this, it's like, for him to then do his capital letters, like, I never said that. Yeah. It's like, you did say it in a sort of, we're looking at it. Well, then Why
do you think the morning after pill is more emotive? Does
because
that
that's like
strike
a sort
people
of
as a tiny bit like an abortion?
I guess that's what it is.
I mean, it isn't at all, is it? It does actually prevent the thing getting embedded in the...
so it's like a pre...
So it's nothing like an abortion, but is it that they are at that moment where... It's very hard to get into their mind. Yeah, exactly. You know, because I still think of it, I'm just pragmatic, right? It's like, there's a point at which I feel you shouldn't scrape a viable... entity.
The morning after pill maybe is taking it to another level, but even someone like Christopher Hitchens conceded that, not conceded, he advocated that conception was the only reasonable time you could really cite. Philosophically, he said there was any other time period was arbitrary.
Well,
and
it's
he was
not arbitrary if you can say that there are some conditions in which a baby can be aborted when it could conceivably have been born. I mean, that's not a philosophical,
Right, but anything in that earlier period, between 1 and 2 and 4, that is the philosophical area where he says you end up at conception. That's a big discussion for the scope of this show.
Over to the Times now, Josh, one of the most disappointingly under-illustrated stories of the evening.
Creative Scotland under pressure over funding for hardcore sex show. They were talking about performance for unsimulated sex. I have to say I didn't get the part. But, this person, Lene Ray Gayson, their project called RAIN, they were given £23,000 in 2022 for research and development, and then they were given £84,000 in January this year. And when the Scottish National Arts Agency, when it was revealed what the show was really about and how there was this sex cave, daddy's cave, and there was rhythms of, I don't want to say people eating breakfast, fisters involved, blended...
Nude doppelbangers.
And just really quite disturbing stuff. And then when they were sort of hauled up, they were like, we didn't know anything about it. Creative Scotland, no, what are you talking about? Then it turns out now it was actually all written down ahead of plan and they knew exactly what it was.
So just to be clear, maybe I should know, Creative Scotland is essentially a part of the government that distribute funds.
And essentially the English people are paying for it. Because
everything.
Because the Scottish government are running a deficit, and so that's $100,000 of
they got $100,000. We need to change headliners. Cash in on this money. Josh, what are you prepared to do for this money?
I mean, it's not a huge amount of money by national standards or government standards or whatever. But if you look at the Edinburgh Fringe and how much any kind of other show up there would kill for $100,000 or even $10,000, most of them lose money, don't they?
That's 1 month's rent at the Edinburgh Festival.
It does kind of skew the whole idea of what live performance might be about in Scotland. It does feel a little bit weird. These are the things that generally make money on their own, aren't they?
But you chuck it at them, don't you?
But art pushing boundaries, these are the good things, but this just sounds like some crazy kinked up...
It's gross. Shut it all down.
Well, give it back to Drag Queen Story Hour, where we were all comfortable with that. Now, Nick, staying with the Times, and a sign of them, indeed. Young recruits to the police centering their well-being over weekend service.
Yes, Gen Z police recruits don't want to work weekends, bosses told. And they're basically, this guy's saying they have a different expectation for work-life balance. a.k.a. they're lazy and afraid. I mean, I know it's a tough job, but he says, you know, they're not like Gen X, which that came before them. I'm like, hello, millennials. I mean, he's missed out a whole generation. I mean, obviously, Josh is Gen X, your greatest generation. But, sorry, I thought that would be funny.
I was a settler.
You're X as well, aren't you? /
I'm
Boomer.
right on the cusp of Boomer and X, although I think Boomer is an entirely American phenomenon. I don't think we boom.
No English boomers. We didn't boom.
I don't think we boom.
No, we didn't boom. It's not like a Simon. We didn't boom.
They had
no
rationing
boom.
still. People weren't.
Yeah, but that was the point. But the whole point about baby boom is that they came of age at the end of rationing, and then they had the 60s, they had the teenage. It's like they're called the golden generation.
Golden. Yeah.
Then
anyway,
80s they made lots of money.
I think we're going to have to cut for the break we've meandered on before we could really get stuck in. That's it for part 3. Stay with us for the final section. We have the latest travesty of a royal portrait, sick leave for the pet bereaved, and scooping a tunnel out of jail with a spoon. We'll see you in a couple of minutes.
This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
So the UK's most popular baby names have been revealed, with Noah and Olivia again topping the annual list. In at number 2 is Mohammed for boys. List is on the screen here. Number 3 for boys is George. Then it goes Olivia. Then it's Leo, Arthur, and so on. And for girls, so Olivia is number 1. Then Amelia, Isla, Ava, Lily, Ivy, Freya. There we go. Any of those names take your pick? Where's Dawn, by the way?
Well, yeah, there's on the Telegraph website, right, there's a really good way linked into this where you can actually put your name into the search engine, and these are names from 2022, by the way, and it tells you how common your name was. And I did put Dawn in. It's never been that popular. Can't think why. And there were only 5 babies named Dawn in 2022.
Really? That's surprising.
It's not a full confession here, right? My middle name, Mum, I hate you, is Maureen. Why is everyone laughing? My middle name is Maureen, which is a good old-fashioned East End name, and that has completely died out. There were no babies named Maureen.
Well, it's interesting, isn't it? Names like Keith, for example, Peter. Would you call a baby these days Keith or Ian? Baby Ian?
Without a doubt. I feel like I'm in a persecuted minority, you see, because later on, when I'm watching the boxing with Terry, Steve, Mick, Phil and Kev, right, and Peter, there are no such names featuring in this list. We are dying out. Our names will soon be gone forever, and I feel victimised by it.
Likewise, I should think we should start a campaign group and go on a protest march through London.
Cans, what do you make about Mohammed being number 2 for boys' names?
You know, I'm not going to comment on people. You know, they're going to call what they want to call. What I find interesting is people that do double barrel because they can't decide, and you know, a lot of people do that, and that's a bit difficult because I think you should just pick a name. You know.
I tell you, names that are falling down the list though: Harry and Meghan.
In the GB newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK,
GB News brings you accurate reporting of the day's topical agenda.
When the news breaks, wherever and whenever it's happening,
we'll be there.
This is GB News,
the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
Good afternoon, Britain.
Good afternoon, Britain.
Weekdays from midday, we bring you the most compelling stories from across the United Kingdom.
And why it matters to you. From your doorstep to our inbox.
That's right, we want to hear from you. Good afternoon, Britain. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We're proud to be GB News, the People's Channel. And as you know, we always love to hear your views. Now, there's a new way of getting in touch with us at gbnews.com/your-say. By commenting, you can be part of a live conversation and join our GB News community. You can even talk to me, Bev Turner, or any of the members of the GB News family.
And welcome back to Headliners. So, cracking on, we have the Mirror, Josh, yet another bizarre and provocative royal portrait, no doubt from a well-meaning but misguided monarchist.
Yeah, Kate Middleton, portrait in Tatler sparks furious backlash after leaving fans horrified. And it's supposedly it's to speak to her courage and dignity. We have to have a look at it, basically, to see how rubbish it is.
That's not it, by the way.
That's not it. That would be really... It's bad, but it ain't as bad as that. Yeah, what it is, it looks like it's a Photoshop that's kind of...
We could quickly draw it and it would
Yeah,
be better.
let me just do it.
Okay, it is very poor. It's kind of like the...
There it is.
I looked at it and thought it's the Aldi version of Kate. Do you know what I mean? It really doesn't look like... It's not got her beauty.
Oh, there it is.
There you go.
Hey.
You have to really see the face to see how bad it is.
From this distance, it looks more like decor, doesn't it, the Tatler?
The face is where it all goes wrong. And, look, I hope she's OK.
Is that what's that called? Teal, isn't it? That's teal.
It looks like a Photoshop.
That's the
like
background.
a photo that's been photoshopped. Ironically.
It's really... You look at the face,
naive,
it doesn't look anything
just
like it.
that other one looked naive. Not Prince Charles, but the wealthiest, the Australian billionaire, mining billionaire.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
That one,
yeah,
you know, they're just being done a bit like
wasn't
children.
Wasn't not
very
good.
well done.
like some illustration children's book. Or
Oh, dear. Everyone, no one left behind. Helpful advice from the Mirror, Nick, on how to survive the coming nuclear strike once David Lammy has been Foreign Secretary for a couple of weeks.
Nice. Yeah, it's Brits given chilling government warning on exact items they need at home to survive nuclear strike. But it's not just nuclear. They also say this is preparing for emergencies like another pandemic. Maybe Bill Gates has got his 2.0 planned. A mass cyber attack or nuclear war, maybe.
Cyber attack, Wi-Fi down. That's what everyone really fears.
Right. Or maybe they're planning war with Russia. Don't know what they're planning next, guys. I just want to throw that in because we're talking about tin food here, so I thought I'd go full conspiracy.
Yeah.
So they're saying you need tin food, bottled water, blah, 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 all the usual things. All the things I've got, basically. Apparently, 40% of people don't have more than 3 days' supplies. I do. I've got the water. I've got... Scott Capurro was having a go at me for eating canned tuna the other day. He's like, you eat canned tuna? What's wrong with you? Like, I'm sort of terrible. Who's going to survive longer, Scott, in the apocalypse?
You're like a cockroach. I've got loads of canned tuna. I like canned mackerel as well. I'm very fond of it. In fact, I used to have several cans of butter beans and chickpeas as well that had made several house moves.
Early during COVID, I went full prepper. I didn't know which way I was going to go. I've got torches by my bed. I've got totally legal weapons, things that can be used as weapons, but totally legal.
Well, they don't mention the gun here.
No.
Or any kind of weapons, because really, if you run out, you just go and kill your neighbours.
I've got an air rifle, which I think I could plausibly defend the front door with. I mean, people might just, back off, and think there's got to be something easier.
Josh isn't worried about the elements.
But it might,
he's worried about, I've just got to be the strongest human.
Yeah, exactly.
I've just got to be the cleverest, wiliest or strongest.
But also, they haven't mentioned toilet paper. And as we know from an actual crisis, that is the thing that ran out.
It does say that, remember, food for pets. And I was thinking, or vice versa.
Or the pets. Damn it, I made that
Keep them nice and fat.
Why didn't I read that one? That's my only good joke.
Telegraph, Josh, my old hometown here, back on the map for the first time since I left.
St Albans, yes. Set to be a first smart-free UK city for under 14s. But that's a slight...
Smartphone-free.
Smartphone-free, yeah.
It's
but not
free
really.
Now Simon's left with his 158 IQ.
This isn't like an official council decision here. This is 20 of the 24 primary schools kind of saying, hey, everybody, let's not give phones to kids before they're 14.
It's a consortium.
Yeah, it's a consortium. That doesn't mean it's going to actually go through.
No.
The problem is that when kids go off to secondary school, that seems to be the age when they get the phone.
That was the thing. Is like primary schools have come out against smartphones, but they take kids up to 11, and they're talking about this being up to 14. It gets a lot harder after 11.
Much harder. And the other thing is, my kids do all their homework on there. All the stuff now is all app-based.
They order all their essays from Romania on their smartphone.
But they really do all their homework on their phones now. It's
now you're getting it, because this is going to be... It's like an upper middle class thing, right?
Yeah.
But it's going to backfire because the working class kids will be able to use all the phones. The people are like, oh, they've got a short attention span. They'll be YouTubers, and these middle class parents will be working for them because they haven't developed any of the skills. That's
that
where
has
it's going to
been
go.
proven, though, that not having a smartphone while you're at school is worth a grade on every subject, which is really substantial. I mean, that's more than private schools.
My kids have just got a pouch now at school where exactly that. It gets locked in for when they arrive at school.
Good stuff. I wish they did that at concerts as well. The Mail is shocked by indications of a wealthy elite emerging in the previously egalitarian Saudi capital, Riyadh.
Nice.
Yeah, but it's not just about the wealth, it's about the culture. It's introducing Saudi Arabia's first nightclub where booze is banned and it costs £1,900 to get in. So this is...
Well, to be a member for a year...
Well, I'm just reading the headline, I'm so sorry.
Sorry,
This is how we do the show. It's Beast House, but it's not that beastly because, really, drink is banned. It's kind of like an underage disco. It's basically expensive, sober dancing is what it's all about.
Well, they're flashing their Maserati, whatever. What is the Bugatti keys, I suppose?
Yeah.
That's all it's doing, isn't it?
But, are men and women going to be in different sections?
It didn't say, but that's a good idea.
That's the key.
This is nightclub washing now.
It's not sports washing now, it's nightclub washing.
Mail again, Josh, probably our last story for the night. A certain amount of sympathy towards animal lovers. Doesn't sound very French.
a day off, not for horses, but a day off if your pet dies. Campaigners in France call for animal lovers to be given time to grieve if Fido or Mr. Nibbles pass away. I don't have any animals. I got too many kids for that. But I do think this is quite a good idea because I do know the people who do have pets, they really see them as part of their family.
If you lose a dog...
What a scam, though. If you've got a fish or a stick insect...
Well, this is what I was going to say was, a goldfish, no.
Dogs and cats...
but maybe a gerbil half a day?
Le chat et le chien. The show is nearly over. Let's take another quick look at Thursday's front pages. We have the Daily Mail. Now is the moment for Britain to choose its future. Do they want a soaking wet Sunak? Guardian, Sunak's big gamble. The Financial Times, Sunak bets on July 4th election. The Mirror, drown and out. The Telegraph, Sunak gambles on Snap poll. And the Metro, Sunak bets the House. Those were your front pages. That's all we have time for on this historic day. Thank you to my guests, Josh Howie and Nick Dixon. Stephen Allen will be here tomorrow at 11 p.m. with Lewis Schaefer and Scott Cooper, beg your pardon. If you're watching at 5 a.m, stay tuned for breakfast. Otherwise, thank you very much for your company. Sleep well. Good night.
A brighter outlook with